Hey traders, this is Krishna Joshi from 7 Points Capital, and this is my first video in this trader takeaway series. Let's jump into a couple of names that were really active on the day. This is my layout. This is what I usually have. I have the spies up in the big chart along with a couple of other ones. I watch the USO pretty often combined with a few oil names. And then today we were watching MAT, Mattel, the toy maker company, and they had really poor numbers because of the Toys R Us bankruptcy. We saw a similar weak impact on HAS a few days ago, which announced earnings, which did not go really well. Markets didn't take it too well. I have some sort of issue with this one. Alright, there we go. And this was earnings in HAS a few days ago, and we saw a similar weak impact. The stock kind of gapped down and kept going down because they really had a big impact on the revenues. The stock definitely bounced back today. It has majority of the market share when you compare that with MAT, but MAT, it's been down on earnings for most of the last few quarters. You see a huge big gap down here. 3 earnings ago, last earnings sometime in July, that was pretty weak, and October again. Like, this is probably, we'll have to go back on the monthly to see how low this can really go. Look at that, that is 2009, which is when it hit this low. And the next level that we're looking at is somewhere in between the 1125 range. There we go, 1125 to 1050 is what we could potentially see. That's what we initially felt in the morning, that the stock's really gapped down, it's beaten down. But if you look at it, the stock had a huge gap down, close to 25% gap down after hours yesterday. And the stock didn't really, if you look at the pre-market action, it was actually holding a little higher than this 1250 range that it was selling off to. You could see some volume, huge volume down up to 1150, you can see after hours, and a lot of sell off all the way up to like 6 o'clock around the 1250 range. And the stock kind of really gapped up from that level, almost like half a point. And as you can see, the stock was restricted because it was down more than 10%. Obviously, we call it SSR, short seller restriction. And I just want to focus on how the open went. This was the pre-market action. You can see pre-market huge push up, and all of these green bars, they were like really solid on volume. So definitely a lot of buying going on, and that's the best part about what we do at 7 Points, is even though the stock's beating down, we can see that the stock is gapping down 20%. It was down 25% after hours, but when you see that there's a lot of buying going on, you can read the tape. That's a skill that we've acquired over these years, and with experience you could tell that the stock did not really want to go down. It had definitely a lot of noise in and around this 13 area, 1320 and 1305, which was definitely a lot of buying going on, and it would kind of try to force you into selling, because this looked like a couple of times where it was really trying to sell off, and then it would just come up again and set up for a long setup. And this ended up being the best stock on the day for me. So with every opportunity that it set up, I was looking to get long on this one. So I was trying to buy the 07s, 08s all the way up, trying to buy the 10s. And the best part about this was, the seller was trying to flip it down a few cents. They had set up really well, give an opportunity to get in on the long side. And all of these setups that you can see, perfect long setups for us. Bought the 21s, bought the 20s here, bought the 16s here. And this was just an easy trade all the way up. And we did kind of see this coming, like the way the diamond sales were going off. You could read the tape, and you could have a feel for the stock that it really wants to trade at much higher levels. And at that moment for me, it really came down to the path of least resistance, and you could see that it couldn't really sell off or hold the levels from yesterday after hours. It went up pre-market, and this was much higher than the pre-market pre-market levels. Definitely, once it crossed the 1320 level, it did go to 1340 in the morning, and it was wedging down on the way up, on the way down from 1340 to 1315, 1320 level. And once it broke out of that, it was a really easy trade. Um, this one again on the 1 minute really felt extended. Kind of kept trimming some on the way. I remember taking some around the 55s. Then probably got long again on the break about 60, 61s and 62s. And it went so quick. There were like market orders flying off. There were like ISO orders, ISO, and the stock would just rip up 5-10 cents easy. And the best part was it could do size. It could handle definitely a lot of volume on the day. It definitely got a little nasty. There were moves where you were kind of caught up on the wrong side because it was a long bias. This was a very easy trade for me where you didn't have to think about it, whether this stock is going to reverse at some point, especially at the levels that it had been trading, much higher than the pre-market, much higher than after hours, and that's all it came down to. So once it started setting up again, I remember the level around 75, which was around 245, 250. It would sell off beyond 75, but there would be a lot of buying going on, and it would flip down a couple of cents, and in fact it would just absolutely rip up like 6-7 cents very easy. Like you can see here, you could see massive positions on different ECNs and dark pools, and the exchanges had 25-30,000 on the offer around this part, and it just got taken out one shot. So, and not just that, it would just flip up like 5-6 cents right away. So it all came down to the timing. You had to be really quick if you wanted a great price. But if you didn't get the first offer, you didn't get the second price, that was still fine, because the trade in this one was to buy it on the way up. Once it felt like it was getting extended, you kind of wanted to scale out of the position. So if you bought 75, 76s, 77 and 8s, you knew this was an easy trade where you could just hold it for a few cents. I remember taking around the 85, 86s, and then it set up again, and you could this was a great setup again, like 1 cent channel for a few minutes. There's a huge offer at 89, and it gets taken out, and 14 is the next level, which coincided with this again, which was the 225 high that it made. So all in all, one of the better stocks on the desk overall for 7 points. The stock was beaten down. Everyone expected poor numbers, especially after HAS had already announced a few days ago. And that's what happened. The stock gapped down 25%. But when we see a reversal, when we see the path of least resistance being on the upside, that's the direction you want to be in. We're looking at the 5-minute chart, the clear breakout right around 12:15, and since that push, it didn't really retrace anything at all. So if anyone was looking to buy it on the pullbacks, he didn't get a chance at all, and which is why we felt like even though it was getting extended, it got a little choppy. It had a few tails, as you can see here, but still the direction was on the way up. It'll be interesting to see how it sets up on Monday. This might be a good red to green kind of setup where the stock might just gap down a few cents, maybe 1% or 2, just around this area, 13.75. I'm gonna keep that in mind. 14 definitely on the way up. And if it opens somewhere in that range, it'll be an interesting stock for Monday as well. Let's jump on to the next stock that we were watching. And that's definitely did really well in this one too. JCPenney, poor guidance. The stock, obviously, as you know, it's one of the retailers that stopped giving dividends a few quarters ago, and they came out a few months ago saying that they don't see it in any near term that they'll be able to start giving out dividends. In fact, they cut the guidance for the next few quarters as well, for the coming quarter as well, and you could definitely see it on the stock. Let's jump on to the daily for a moment here, because I want to show you how much lower the stock's been, how weak the stock has been compared to all the other retailers. On the swing positions, we were kind of long around the breakout of 380, 375, 380 area. That was a good trade, a good 7-8% in a few days, but definitely one of the weaker ones. We saw the Nordstrom deal not go through in terms of the company tried to take itself private. We've seen rumors of Kohl's trying to take themselves private, but in this kind of environment, no one really believes in these retailers. The worst doesn't seem to end. So let me quickly go on to the monthly to give you an idea how much lower. You can look at it. There are no levels at all in this one that it's traded below. The stock gap down below last quarter earnings. Let me show you the levels on this one. Right there, as you can see. So this was the level that this was the huge gap down on last earnings, and the low around that one was about 340, 345, I believe. Yes, 345 low on that one. The stock had been setting up on the way down. You can see a good short setup on these occasions, and there you can see poor guidance and the stocks trading at multi-year lows. So really interesting how this opened up as well. Similar setup to MAT that we saw earlier. The stock gapped down really hard in the morning. The pre-market action was so much lower. It was around the 265s and 270s, where majority of the volume got traded. 270, 275 as well. And just around the open, you can see like 275 was just setting up really well. 275 on the offer, and right around 9:30, 9:25 to 9:30, I kept looking at this, and the stock just rallied off the open. Did not really involve myself in the first initial push, but once it set up again, this is one of the trades that I want to look at. Once if you don't want to chase the initial pop right at 9:30, it really sets up again pretty well around 9:45, 9:50. That's when you might want to get on the direction of the trend. And it set up really well around the 288. It was really easy buy 288, 89s, and you got a quick about 9-10 cents move in this one. One thing I regret on this one was taking off a little too early. I think I took 93s and 94s. The stock ended up going to 3 flat, but nonetheless it was a good trade. It was a high conviction trade for me. I was trying to look at how level 2 was setting up on the stock, and which is why 93s looked like a good take at that point, but it kind of just pushed through it again. It kept setting up again on the long side. Again, I'm not looking to trade it on the short side, even though you could see like big red bars. You could see that the stock might be setting up to go down a few cents. Like 5 cents on this one is a good 2%, but I'm not really looking at that. I'm looking at the trade in the direction of the trend and the path of least resistance again. Sets up again. Definitely traded on the long side all throughout. What that did was I probably missed this down move, but that was fine because the up move was much cleaner. I had much more conviction on it, and the probability of the trades working out were much higher for me once they set up again around 10 o'clock in this kind of similar fashion. This trade was definitely felt like it was overextended, so we had to wait for the pullback. So I wasn't really jumping on to chase it around here on the pullback. Instead, probably did not catch anything on the way down, but that's fine. We're just looking for it to set up again, come into the volume profile zone where a lot of volumes being traded, which was back around the 3 area. Let me go on to the 5-minute to give you an idea how the stock kind of felt like it was being a little overextended, and it kind of pulled back, came into the 305 area again, and you can see the bottom on this one is $3 flat, and it set up again on the way up. And this was one of the easiest, cleanest moves all the way up. No real shakeouts on this one. 305, 306 was a good buy. Wasn't really looking to bottom fish. It was fine getting in a little later, catching 305s and 306s and risking below $3 to catch 5, 6, 7 cents. And this ended up being a really good trade. A lot of other guys on the desk were trading on the long side right around here because it was one of the cleanest moves. And on the definitely not looking to trade it on the way down. There's a lot of action going on. 309 set up again, I remember, and we're trying to buy the 309s on the way up. Got a few cents here with size, but that was pretty much it. Like, I mean, the conviction was on the long side, similar with MAT, and that kind of summarizes how SPY finished. SPY sold off probably around the second half of the day. You can see a few big down moves, but apart from that, it was just rallying straight up in the morning. The GDP numbers came in pretty good, 3% versus 2.5 estimated. And you can see this, the market just kept rallying all the way up to 258 level, which was around up until 2 o'clock. And hopefully the markets just cap up Monday morning as well. It's been really strong. It's been that kind of market environment where every sell-off is a good opportunity to get in. And I have a few traders I follow on Twitter. That's what they said. If you cannot stomach a bounce back, a pullback of like 1.5% in spice, what are you doing in the market? And that's the kind of environment we are in. GDP, the economy is looking pretty good, and the stocks are just, you can see that in the numbers. And that's the two best stocks on the day for us. And this is my first video in this entire trader takeaway series. So I would like to thank you guys for watching. Please leave a comment, like, or share, and subscribe with your friends. Subscribe to our channel. And I always believe that let's learn together and grow together as traders in this trading community, and that's what we are here for at 7 Points. Thanks again.